Hey y'all, IrixGuy here. Now this is the firmware update for version 1.4.0010. That's the latest firmware that was released September the 7th of 2015. Now obviously I've already downloaded it. Came with a DJI Go app update. I just went to App Store on my iPod Touch and updated that there. Not going to video that, very straightforward process. I have the micro SD card inserted into the Phantom 3 Professional, and it's got the new firmware bin file. So be sure that you install the appropriate bin. I use the Pro, the Phantom 3 Professional, so I've got the Phantom 3 Professional firmware bin file. Let's power it on. And this is the part that confuses a lot of people. A lot of people don't really understand the firmware update procedure for the Phantom 3. Hear that beep, beep, beep. And you hear 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pay attention to this LED, this small LED on your gimbal. That's something that a lot of people do. Man, where's that? So there it is right there. See? And hear that beat pattern? One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, that is flashing between green and red. So the firmware update is in progress. And there are other ways that people have reported doing the firmware update, but I personally prefer to do it this way with the micro SD card inserted, just like I normally would, you know, when you're inserting it to film your photos and your videos, or your videos rather. Check the link within this video's description because you can find a plethora of Phantom 3 tutorial videos and a lot of videos and everything there. It's 400orbelow.com. You can find all of the tutorials I put together, links to buy the various Phantoms. Obviously this being the Phantom 3 Professional, which is the 4K. Everything I film now is in 4K Ultra HD, but I've also got the Phantom 3 Advanced and the Phantom 3 Standard there as well. But we're just going to go through this entire firmware update procedure because there's been a lot of questions from fans. See, now it made another sound like doo-doo-doo. And I like how they've added those extra audible acknowledgments, because with previous firmwares, I would hear the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I would have this LED indicator on the camera gimbal assembly, but I didn't really have. There's a lot of people that weren't sure if it was completed or not, so that's why I want to go through the entire process. Obviously, I'm going to film the entire firmware update process, and immediately following this, I'm taking it out to a safe and responsible location. And we're going to get a flight test video, my first flight with the latest Phantom 3 firmware. So we're just going to go through this whole thing here. I haven't really timed it, but I mean, you can look at the timestamp on the video to kind of get a feel for how long it may take. Ultimately, what I'm waiting for, you hear the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm waiting for it to change to I think it's a triple beep. And then this indicator, this LED indicator is another telltale sign that it should be properly updated. Now, obviously, once we update this, then we're going to have to update the controller. And to do that, I'm using this. And you can find this. Check the link within this video's description. You can find this adapter as well. It's just a micro SD or actually USB to micro SD. So I'm going to use this same card, this micro SD card that's inserted into my Phantom 3 right now, Phantom 3 Professional, performing the update. Once that completes, I'm going to take it out, stick it in this, and then stick it into my controller so that I can update the, well, I've got my iOS cable there. I have to unplug that first. We're going to do the whole thing, and we're going to see if it works, because I'm super excited about this. If you're not aware, this is the firmware that brings a lot of new functionality to the table. Waypoints. It also brings point of interest, which I'm most interested in, because it'll, on paper it says that it'll allow the Phantom 3 to orbit an object on the ground while filming. And then also the follow me, which seems to be a cool feature. You know, get chased around in a safe and responsible location by your Phantom. So that ought to be fun. And I'm really going to have fun with that, taking it out on a boat, chasing a boat. I'm going to put it in, I'm going to incorporate it into a lot of different scenarios, if it works. But we will find out, because I'm going to field test this without hesitation. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, still going. Couldn't be more excited. Certain things really excite me, and this is one of them. Because as I've mentioned previously, we're still in the bag cell phone days of drones. I mean, we've got some cool tools, and the technology's evolving, but in where it's going to head, we're still in the bag cell phone days. I mean, this stuff it's fresh technology. It's not yet completely understood. It's not yet completely fleshed out. We're still in the bag cell phone days, and we've got to get to the smartphone days, where you got the little touch screen like you do on your iPhone or your Android. And I mean, we're early drone adopters, so if you're enjoying this hobby like I am, you're probably as thrilled as I am right now, just watching this update, watching and listening. Is it going to disappoint? Is it going to provide the level of satisfaction that I expect after reading the various articles about what all this should do? We will find out in the field. But right now, this is just the firmware update. One thing I've learned about any sort of technology, whether it's drones, computers, cell phones, never expect it to work. I never assume anything is real until I've actually had hands-on and have experienced it and tested it myself. And if it meets or exceeds my own expectations, then I'm happy. But otherwise, I assume that it's not going to work. So my assumption right now is that this is not going to work. But hopefully the field test will prove otherwise. So we will see here shortly. But first things first, got to get through the firmware update. And that's one thing I reiterate throughout my videos. Drones in today's world are not for the impatient, because this is a new technology. It's still evolving, and if you're not a patient person, and if you're not willing to experiment and learn, then this is not for you. This is not a hobby for you. But with that said, if you are looking for a very rewarding hobby, drones are hard to beat. I know a lot of people have really bashed the quality of support they said they received from DJI, and that's another point I wanted to bring up. I've never had a personal experience with DJI support, simply because I've never had an issue that I couldn't solve myself. So, every minor troubleshooting challenge that I've encountered with Phantom 1 through present, being the Phantom 3 Professional right here, I've been able to troubleshoot and resolve on my own. So I can't personally comment regarding the quality of, or the lack of quality of DJI support, but what I would say is that, if you're deciding whether or not you want to become involved with this hobby, be prepared to do some troubleshooting. be prepared to check out websites like 400orbelow.com, which is my website. And I post a plethora of Phantom 3 lessons learned there. Not just Phantom 3, but previous Phantoms and future Phantoms. It's all going to be there on 400orbelow.com. So it's a great hobby. And this firmware update's taking quite a while, and I think that's a bullish indicator in my opinion, because it seems that since it's taking longer, maybe we're gonna get some more functionality out of it, which obviously we're supposed to. Waypoint flying, point of interest, follow me. Okay, now the lights just flashed again, but we're still getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm waiting for that beep change. As you can see, the LED indicator on the camera is still flashing green and red. Mistake that a lot of people would make, first-time hobbyist, they would power this off prematurely, thinking it's locked up or something. And something, being a technologically minded individual, if you've never dealt with firmware for other devices, then you may not be aware, but anytime a firmware update on any sort of device is prematurely interrupted, whether it loses power, whether the because a battery dies, or the user just fails to wait the entire time and turns it off prematurely, that can cause irrecoverable errors. Errors, if they can be recovered, is probably a situation where you would have to send it to the manufacturer, and then that's just a big mess. So always remember, when you're doing a firmware update, and this is not just for Phantom 3, but if you're doing a firmware update for any sort of device, camera, whatever gadget you may have, always be sure you have a fully charged battery. Always be sure it's plugged into a wall, if applicable, which obviously with this you wouldn't have it in a wall charger when you're okay. Now hear that noise now. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So notice the different sound. It's not the 4 beeps. It's 1, 2, 3. 3 beeps. And then also you will notice the indicator above the camera, the LED that was previously flashing red and green is now a steady green. So what this says, based upon my understanding and my experience, and we're about to test it in the field, so check out that video too. Check the link within this video's description. You can find all the videos there. But this tells me that the Phantom 3 Professional has been successfully firmware updated. Now, if we want to take it to the next level, we could also insert the micro SD card in the computer and look at a text file to see if it says successful or not. But since I'm in such a hurry to get out in the field and test this new firmware, I'm going to assume that what I'm hearing now, the beep, 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 the triple beeps, and the solid green LED indicator suggests that it has been successfully firmware updated. So let's power off now that that's in place. And it says that it's been updated based upon the behavior. So power this off. And then once I powered that off, what I'm going to do next is eject the micro SD card, which obviously has the firmware on it. I'm going to take this micro, and by the way, you can find this micro SD card. Check the link within this video's description. I've got it there as well. I've had great success with it. With recording 4K video. So I'm just going to insert it into my micro SD to USB adapter, which you can also find within the link within this video's description. And I'm going to unplug and I keep my short iOS cable, and that's there as well. Everything you need, including the Phantom, everything you need can be found within the link within this video's description. If it's not there, just send me a message and I'll find you a link. So I'm going to insert this into the controller. Again, make sure your controller's charged prior to doing this. So once I've inserted that into my controller, what I'm going to do next is just flip this up so I can see. I'm going to be focused upon these LEDs down here. Takes just a minute. It should turn green. Actually, I'm kind of shocked that it didn't make a noise. Normally, it makes a noise indicating that it's that the firmware update's in progress. So we're just going to let it sit there for a minute. There's actually a possibility that maybe it was somehow updated by my app already, but we'll see. We're going to give it a moment here. Okay, so now we're going to fire up the app before we go to the field just to make sure that everything syncs up. Okay, so after powering on the app on my iPod Touch, I'm greeted with this, and by the way, this app was updated as I had mentioned previously. Just go to your app store and download it. In my case, it was the Apple App Store because I use iPod Touch. But it says to use Intelligent Navigation mode, please update your aircraft firmware Professional Advanced to version 1.4.10. So that's obviously what I did previously before I powered on the controller. So it makes no mention of updating the controller. So let's just make sure we can pair up here. It does say aircraft connected. Let's enter the camera view. It's got a safety tutorial. I'm going to skip that because obviously I understand the proper operations of a drone, how to be safe, how to be responsible, how to have a good time. Okay, so now you can see here it says safe to fly GPS. We're going to take this out to the field and test it. But I mean, everything seems to be up to date. And if you just wanted to confirm, what you can do is where it says safe to fly GPS, you can click that. Let me just do that again to demonstrate. So right here where it says safe to fly GPS in the middle, you can click that with your finger. And then it says aircraft state, overall status, normal. Latest firmware. So that's telling me that it feels that it has the latest firmware installed. So without further ado, let's conclude this video. Check the link within this video's description and you can find my field test. This was just the Phantom 3 Professional firmware update procedure. So again, just to recap, I downloaded to my iPod Touch through the Apple App Store. I downloaded the latest app, just went into App Store and did update, and it saw that there was an updated version of this app. So I did that first. Second thing I did, I downloaded the firmware, and you can check the link within this video's description to find a link to download that firmware. But I downloaded the firmware onto this micro SD card, inserted the micro SD card into the Phantom 3 Professional, obviously had a fully charged battery, because I didn't want it to run out of juice during the firmware update. Once that update completed, I then attempted to update the controller, but it turns out that the controller did not need an update for this particular firmware. So upon firing up the app, the DJI Go app, it indicates that all systems are go. So that means that it is time to field test. Share this video with others. Subscribe if you haven't already. YouTube.com/IrixGuy, and be sure to check out 400 or below.com for an extensive amount of Phantom 3 drone tutorials, drones, drone accessories. I put it all there. Thanks for your viewership, and y'all have a good day.